A show of unity on the first night of the Democratic convention as President Biden takes the stage.
And this November, we will come together and declare with one voice, as one people, we are moving forward.
Kamala Harris made her first appearance at the United Center, surprising delegates and firing up the crowd for what's to come this week. She also praised President Biden for his long political career. President Biden gave the keynote address to end the evening.
Electing Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career. I promise I'll be the best volunteer Harrison Walz has Cam ever seen.
Joining us now to talk about it all is political analyst Paul Lisnek. Thanks for being with us, Paul.
Hey, good morning, Robin and Larry.
So a lot of breakdown about yesterday. Obviously, Joe Biden passing the torch to Kamala Harris. There was some talk about it, the fact that it was pushed so late. What happened there?
Well, the convention planners issued a statement afterwards saying that there were so many applause that went on and on for every single speaker that it pushed things later and later, and the president didn't get on until about an hour after he was supposed to. That's what the convention planners said. You know, the reality is they had a huge list of speakers, a whole number of female lieutenant governors from around the country. One could have probably maybe shortened that list a little bit, but that was in fact, it went on so long, James Taylor was to play at the end. They ended up cutting him from the evening.
Wow. Hillary Clinton spoke. How does Harris avoid mistakes that she made in the election in which she lost to Trump?
Well, Larry, I think the prime answer there is that Hillary Clinton's loss wasn't so much about being a female candidate for president as it was Hillary Clinton and the negatives that went along with her. You know, she brought in, like her or not like her, but she brought in a lot of baggage to the race that Harris doesn't have as much or the same kind of baggage for her. You know, Clinton's speech last night, she made exactly the point we thought she would make, which was lots of holes in the glass ceiling, and now it's time to break through. But also a lot of, you know, she got her jabs in on Trump as well. I mean, it's almost like she owed him a punch or two, and she certainly got some strong lines in about him. But the bottom line for Harris is she needs to set her own campaign. We're already seeing a much more happy and joyful energy around Harris than probably ever surrounded Hillary Clinton.
Well, with that theme of joy, there was also a lot of fixation about Trump, and everyone seemed to hammer on that. Talk about your biggest surprises of the evening.
Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez turned out to be the big surprise of the evening in that, while she's a very, you know, sort of mixed character in her world, she got probably one of the largest rousing ovations last night. Her main point was really to try and bring back the working person into the fold for Democrats. You know, that's one of the things that has surprised a lot of people, that Trump's appeal to the working class. It's sort of like, wait, wasn't that the Democrats group over the years? And AOC did everything she could to bring them back, making the point that Republicans want me to go back to bartending. Well, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think a lot of what she said last night will probably be remembered, surprisingly so, Robin, because AOC, of course, is sort of a lightning rod for a lot of points. Very well received last night by that audience.
Do you have a sense that Trump is struggling to figure out a strategy against Harris here? You heard rumblings of she's too liberal, but he keeps going back to the personal attacks. What do you expect or think the Republicans might do going forward?
Well, we're seeing a little bit, you know, Larry, there's kind of a tradition that during a party's a convention week, the other side kind of gets quiet and stays off the scene for a while. Democrats did that during the Republican convention, but the Republicans are not doing that this week. Trump is everywhere this week, every day. There's also a series of Republicans who are doing press conferences all throughout the week. And yesterday's press conference given by Rick Scott and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Rick Scott of Florida, was to talk about how there was a coup to pull Biden from the top of the ticket. And that's a lot of what Trump is talking about. He himself, in an interview yesterday with, I think, CBS, talked about the fact that, you know, that there was a coup on Biden. So, yes, you are right. He's having a difficult time, not just trying to find the right attack lines for Harris at this point, but clearly this campaign was geared up to run against Joe Biden. He's not moving on from that. And then the question is this, if you want to think strategically about it, with all of this talk about whether or not Biden was properly or improperly removed from the top of the ticket, because he wasn't removed, he stepped down, he resigned from it. It sounds as though that if Harris wins in the end, it sounds like the basis for a lot of challenges, legal challenges about what happened, they will not win, because the DNC, just like the RNC, has the right to create any rules they want.
All right, you can watch Paul every Sunday at 9 a.m. for the Political Report. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Paul.